A struggling single mom asked a stranger for a ride and never imagined he was a millionaire CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Maya quickly checked her phone, her eyes scanning the screen for the time. The hospital appointment was in an hour, and there was no way she would make it on foot with her son, Noah, in tow. As a single mother working double shifts at a local diner, every day was a race against time. She had little to spare, no energy, no resources, and certainly no money for a cab. Her car, old and unreliable, had broken down on the way to her shift earlier that morning, and now it was dead on the side of the road. She stared at the empty street in front of her, her breath visible in the cold evening air. Her fingers clutched the stroller's handle, Noah sound asleep inside, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. A wave of frustration washed over her. How did I end up here? She thought to herself, fighting back tears. She wasn't sure if it was the exhaustion or the mounting weight of her responsibilities, but everything seemed to be falling apart. Just then, a car slowed down next to her, the engine purring smoothly as the window rolled down. Maya glanced up, her heart skipping a beat. A man with short, dark hair and a sharp suit leaned toward the window, his eyes softening as he noticed her standing there. "Excuse me," he called out gently. "Are you all right? You look like you could use some help." Maya hesitated. Her first instinct was to decline. She had grown cautious over the years, wary of strangers offering assistance. But something about the way he spoke, genuine, sincere, made her pause. I'm fine. Just waiting for a tow truck," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. The man didn't seem convinced. "I don't mean to intrude, but if you need a ride, I can give you one. I'm headed in the same direction," he offered with a kind smile. Maya bit her lip, torn. She could keep waiting for the tow truck, but it would take too long. She could also walk, but it would be hours before she reached the hospital. And Noah, her son, so small and innocent, needed to be there for his appointment. The man's offer seemed like the only solution. I don't want to bother you," she said hesitantly. "It's no bother at all," he replied quickly. "Please, let me help." After a brief moment of hesitation, Maya nodded. She was desperate, but more than that, she was exhausted. The man opened the door for her, and she carefully settled Noah into the back seat. The car smelled faintly of leather and something citrusy, an unexpected comfort in the midst of her chaos. As the car pulled away, Maya glanced over at her unexpected companion. He was dressed in a way that screamed wealth. Expensive suit, polished shoes, a watch that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Yet, his demeanor was humble. He didn't seem like the type to show off his riches. "Thank you for this," Maya said quietly, breaking the silence. "I really appreciate it." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "No need to thank me," he said with a small smile. "Everyone needs help sometimes." They continued in silence for a while, the hum of the engine and the soft rhythm of the tires on the road filling the air. Maya tried not to think too much about it. How someone like him could offer help so easily, without asking for anything in return. The thought of it almost made her feel guilty. She hadn't asked for help, but here he was, offering it anyway. She couldn't help but wonder what his life was like, what brought him to this moment. "What do you do?" she asked suddenly, trying to break the silence. He glanced at her briefly before answering. "I work in tech," he replied, his voice casual. "It's a pretty demanding job." Maya nodded, trying to picture him working in an office, making decisions that affected hundreds of people. But she didn't ask any more questions. She wasn't sure if she was ready to know more about him, especially not yet. The drive continued, and Maya allowed herself to relax a little, her thoughts momentarily drifting away from the constant pressure she faced. Little did she know, this simple ride would change the course of her life forever. "I was really glad I could help," the man said, his voice warm as he navigated the smooth streets. Maya gave a small, appreciative smile. It had been a while since anyone had shown her such kindness. Despite the weight of her responsibilities, the small act of generosity from this stranger had been a welcome relief. She glanced over at him briefly, watching the way his hands gripped the steering wheel with ease. His posture was confident, relaxed, the kind of person who was used to being in control. Yet, he didn't seem arrogant. The contrast between his calm demeanor and her current chaotic life was almost striking. She looked down at Noah, still peacefully sleeping in the back seat, and let out a quiet sigh. She was grateful for the ride, but the thought of her mounting debts, the bills piling up at home, and the fact that she still had a long way to go to get back on her feet left her feeling overwhelmed. "I'm Maya," she said, finally breaking the silence. "I didn't even get a chance to introduce myself properly." The man nodded, glancing at her briefly. "I'm Liam," he said. "Nice to meet you, Maya." Maya smiled, though it felt a little strange to be having such a normal conversation with someone who was clearly in a very different world than her own. "So," she said, trying to make small talk, "what exactly do you do in tech?" Liam's eyes glinted briefly, and he adjusted the rearview mirror before responding. "I'm in charge of some pretty big projects, mainly software development, but I also manage teams for a few startup companies." His tone was casual, but Maya could tell he wasn't being entirely open. There was something in his voice, something that hinted at a lot more beneath the surface. She nodded, unsure of how to respond. "That sounds impressive," she said. "I work in a diner. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills." Liam's smile softened. Everyone has to start somewhere. Maya didn't really know how to react to that. It was easy for him to say that, she thought. She could tell he was being kind, but there was no way he could understand how hard it was to keep up with everything. The hours at the diner were long, and the pay wasn't enough to make ends meet. Still, she never complained. She didn't have time for that. She had Noah to take care of. The drive was peaceful, and before she knew it, they were pulling into the hospital parking lot. Maya's heart raced, a familiar sense of dread settling over her. "Thanks again for the ride, Liam," she said as he put the car in park. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Liam gave her a slight smile, but there was something in his eyes that made her pause. "It's no trouble," he said. "You're doing what you can. I respect that." Maya's heart clenched, and she quickly turned to open the door. She didn't want to let herself get too caught up in the moment. She had enough on her plate already. But as she reached for the handle, Liam spoke again. "Maya," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "I know this is probably not something you expect, but if you ever need help with anything, just ask." Maya turned back to him, startled. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I mean, I know you've got a lot going on," he said, his gaze unwavering. "If you ever need a job, or some advice, or just someone to talk to, don't hesitate to reach out." Maya's chest tightened. She didn't know if she should feel grateful or suspicious. A part of her wanted to refuse. After all, who was this man, really? Just some stranger who was offering help without asking for anything in return? "I appreciate the offer," she said, her voice quiet, "but I'm fine." "Really?" Liam studied her for a moment before nodding. "I understand," he said, his expression softening. "Just know that the offer stands. Sometimes, life has a way of throwing unexpected things your way, and you don't always have to handle it alone." Maya was quiet for a long moment before she managed a small smile. "Thank you, Liam. That means a lot." She opened the car door and stepped out, careful not to wake Noah. She stood for a moment in the hospital parking lot, watching Liam drive away. She felt a mix of emotions, gratefulness, confusion, and a bit of curiosity. What was it about him that made her feel like he genuinely cared? Why had he gone out of his way? To help her? But before she could dwell on it for too long, she focused on the task at hand. The hospital appointment. Noah's future. That's what mattered now. She walked into the building with Noah in her arms, feeling the weight of the day on her shoulders. She tried to shake off the feeling that this encounter with Liam wasn't just a random act of kindness. Somehow, she couldn't shake the feeling that their paths had crossed for a reason. "I was still trying to wrap my head around the unexpected kindness Liam had shown me when I entered the waiting room at the hospital. It wasn't like him to offer help so freely, or at least not the kind of help I was used to. A part of me still wondered what his true intentions were. He didn't seem like the type to offer assistance without expecting something in return. But maybe that was just my own skepticism speaking. I sat down in the waiting area, rocking Noah gently in my arms. I checked my phone to see if there were any updates from work, but the screen remained blank. No messages, no emails, just the usual silence. It was a reminder of how little people seemed to care about my life outside of this small bubble I was constantly stuck in. The hospital's sterile white walls felt colder than usual today, The buzz of fluorescent lights overhead almost like a constant hum in the back of my mind. Noah stirred slightly, letting out a small, tired whimper. I ran a finger over his soft hair and kissed his forehead. "We're going to be okay," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed my own words. The appointment had been a long time coming, and it was important, too important for me to mess up. A nurse called our name, snapping me out of my thoughts. I stood up, carefully gathering Noah in my arms. The nurse led us down a long hallway, her white uniform gleaming under the bright lights. I kept my eyes on the floor, not wanting to make eye contact with anyone else in the hall. I didn't need anyone's pity. Not today. As we reached the examination room, the nurse instructed me to wait for the doctor. I sat in the chair, the same routine I'd been through countless times before, but today was different. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Liam's offer of help still lingered in my mind. Maybe I wasn't alone in this after all. I tried to push the thought away, but it kept coming back. Maybe I was just desperate for a way out. Maybe I was looking for someone to believe in, someone to help me carry the weight of my life. But I didn't want to need anyone. I couldn't afford to. The door creaked open, and I looked up to see the doctor walk in. She was warm and friendly, but her face held an air of professionalism. "Maya, it's good to see you again. How's Noah been?" she asked, her voice gentle. I smiled weakly. "He's been good. A little restless, but I think he's just going through a phase." The doctor nodded, taking a seat across from me. She glanced at Noah, who had fallen asleep in my arms. "He's growing so fast. How are you doing, though?" The question caught me off guard. Most people asked about Noah, but they rarely asked about me. I took a deep breath, trying to find the words. "I'm okay," I said, though I wasn't sure if that was entirely true. "I'm just doing what I have to do." The doctor looked at me for a long moment, her eyes softening. "Maya, I know this is difficult, but it's important that you take care of yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had heard them before, but it never made sense to me. How could I take care of myself when there was no time? When there was no space in my life for anything other than survival? "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "But right now, I don't have much of a choice." She nodded, but there was an understanding in her gaze. "Just promise me you'll think about it, okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure I could make that promise. It felt like everything in my life had been about pushing through, about making it to the next day and the next, without stopping to think about what it was doing to me. The doctor continued with the checkup, and I did my best to focus on the task at hand. I couldn't afford to get distracted, not when Noah's future was at stake. After a few minutes, the doctor finished her assessment. "Noah's doing well, but we'll need to keep monitoring his progress. I want to see him again in a few weeks to check on his development," she said, making some notes on her clipboard. I nodded again, relieved that there was no immediate cause for concern. But as we left the room, I couldn't help but think of Liam's offer. What if I did reach out to him? What if he could help me in ways I couldn't even imagine? But then the walls went up again. No, I couldn't trust someone like him. Or could I? My mind raced as I left the hospital, my heart heavy with the weight of everything I had to handle. But something about today felt different. Maybe it was the simple fact that someone had shown kindness when I wasn't expecting it. Maybe that was enough to give me a little hope. The world felt a little less heavy, even if only for a moment. Maya had always known that she was doing everything on her own. It had been that way for years, struggling to pay rent, scraping together whatever she could to get by, and raising Noah on her own. Every decision she made, every action, was to ensure that he would have a better future, that he wouldn't have to grow up with the same struggles she faced. But even with the love she had for her son, the weight of it all was starting to take its toll. The hospital visit had been a small relief, a reminder that Noah was healthy and that maybe, just maybe, things weren't as bad as they seemed. But after the checkup, reality hit again. She was still juggling multiple jobs, still living paycheck to paycheck, and still overwhelmed by the constant pressure of being a single mom. The offer Liam had made kept running through her mind. At first, she had dismissed it as a kind gesture from a stranger, nothing more. But the more she thought about it, the more she wondered if she should take him up on it. Could she really trust him? Was it possible that someone with his wealth and status actually cared about helping someone like her? Maya shook her head as she sat at the kitchen table that evening. The soft hum of the fridge the only sound in the apartment. She had just finished putting Noah to bed and was now going through the bills that had piled up on the table. Rent was due in a few days, and the electric bill was already past due. She didn't know how she was going to make it. But then, her phone buzzed on the table, and a message popped up. It was from Liam. "Hi Maya. I hope you and Noah are doing well. I know we didn't talk much earlier, but I just wanted to check in. If you ever need any help or advice, don't hesitate to reach out." I meant what I said. Maya stared at the message for a long time, her fingers hovering over the screen. A part of her wanted to ignore it, to continue doing things on her own, the way she always had. But another part of her wondered if this could be the break she needed. Maybe it was time to stop trying to handle everything alone. Maybe it was time to ask for help. She took a deep breath and typed out a response. "Thank you, Liam. I appreciate your offer. It's just been a lot lately. I'm not sure where to start." The response came almost immediately. "I understand. Take your time. I'm here if you need anything, even if it's just someone to talk to." Maya felt a weight lift off her shoulders as she read his words. It was strange to feel so supported by someone she barely knew, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she wasn't completely alone. After sending the message, Maya sat back in her chair, staring at the screen. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. Maybe this was the start of something new. A few days passed, and life continued as usual. Except now, Maya found herself thinking about Liam's offer more and more. She hadn't reached out to him yet, but she had started to wonder what could happen if she did. She could use some guidance, some advice about managing her finances, or even just balancing everything on her plate. But the fear of asking for help still lingered. What if he saw her as weak? What if he expected something in return? The thought made her uneasy, but she couldn't deny that part of her was curious. Finally, after another long shift at the diner, Maya found herself sitting in her apartment once again, staring at the message Liam had sent her. Her phone was in her hands, and her heart was racing as she typed a response. "I could really use some advice, Liam. I'm struggling, and I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this." She hesitated before hitting send, unsure if she was making the right choice. But she needed help. She couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. A few minutes later, Liam responded. "I'm happy to help in any way I can. Let's set up a time to talk. I'll make sure you get the support you need." Maya felt a sense of relief wash over her as she read his words. Maybe this was the turning point she had been waiting for. Maybe, just maybe, someone out there was willing to help her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. As the days passed, Maya and Liam exchanged more messages, and slowly, Maya started to feel a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just about the advice he was giving her, though that was incredibly helpful. It was about the fact that he cared enough to check in, to offer his support without asking for anything in return. It felt like a small miracle. But even as Maya began to open up to Liam, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more to his offer than met the eye. He was still a stranger, after all. And while he was kind, she couldn't forget the life he led, the life that seemed so far removed from hers. Could this really be real? Or was it all just part of some larger plan? The uncertainty lingered, but for now, Maya decided to trust him. She had nothing to lose. One evening, Liam invited her to meet in person. "I know you're probably busy, but if you have time, I'd love to sit down and talk. I think we could work together to figure things out." Maya agreed, feeling both nervous and excited. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew that meeting him face to face would be a big step. As she prepared for the meeting, Maya couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. Would this meeting change her life? And if it did, would she be ready for it? Maya took a deep breath as she stood in front of the small cafe, the place where she and Liam had agreed to meet. She wasn't sure what to expect from this meeting, but one thing was certain. She couldn't let herself get too comfortable. She had spent years building walls around her life, walls that protected her from getting hurt, from relying too heavily on anyone. Now, here she was, about to meet a man who had already offered help, and part of her still wasn't sure why. He was nothing like the people she was used to. Most of the time, her interactions were brief, passing smiles from customers at the diner or quick conversations with coworkers who didn't really know her. But Liam, he was different. There was something genuine about him that made her question whether it was possible for someone to want to help without expecting something in return. She shook her head, trying to rid herself of the nagging doubt that had been hanging over her. She had made it this far by keeping her guard up, and now it was time to take a step forward. She walked inside, the warmth of the cafe wrapping around her. The smell of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air, creating a strange sense of calm in the midst of her nerves. As soon as she entered, her eyes immediately found Liam sitting at a corner table, his posture relaxed yet confident. He looked up when he saw her and smiled. "Maya," he greeted, standing up and gesturing for her to sit. "It's good to see you in person." Maya returned the smile, though it felt a bit forced. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting down across from him. He waved his hand, as if to dismiss her thanks. "It's no trouble at all. I'm glad you're here." They both settled into the conversation easily. Liam asked about Noah and how things were going at the diner, and Maya answered, grateful for the normalcy of the exchange. But there was still something in the back of her mind, something she couldn't shake. "So," Liam said, after a few minutes of casual talk, "I'm glad we could finally meet. But I wanted to ask, how have you been, really? I know you've had a lot on your plate lately." Maya paused, looking down at her hands. She wasn't sure how to answer. She had spent so long pretending everything was fine, but the cracks were starting to show. "It's been tough," she admitted, her voice softer than she had intended. "I'm barely making it by. I've been juggling 2 jobs, taking care of Noah, and trying to keep everything together. But it feels like I'm just getting by, like I'm always one step behind." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned forward slightly. "I can only imagine how hard it must be," he said. "But you don't have to do it all alone, Maya." Maya looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam paused, his gaze thoughtful. "I mean, there's no shame in asking for help. I know it's hard to trust people, but sometimes we need to rely on others. You don't have to carry this weight by yourself." Maya felt her throat tighten. She had always prided herself on being independent. She had never let anyone see how much she struggled because that would mean admitting that she wasn't strong enough to handle it on her own. But now, in the face of Liam's kind words, it felt different. She wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to keep everything locked inside. She swallowed hard before speaking again. "I've never really had anyone to rely on," she said quietly. "It's always been just me and Noah, and I've always felt like I had to be strong for him. I can't let him see how hard things really are." Liam looked at her for a long moment, his expression gentle. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said softly. "It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to let someone else help you. No one is asking you to do it all alone." Maya didn't respond right away. She wasn't sure what to say. The truth was, she was scared. Scared of letting someone in, scared of feeling weak, scared of depending on someone else and being let down. But Liam's words echoed in her mind. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was being heard. "I don't know how to accept help," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't even know where to begin." Liam smiled, and there was a warmth in his eyes that made her heart flutter. "It doesn't have to be anything big," he said. "Start small. Let me help with the little things, advice, resources, whatever you need. You don't have to carry it all on your own." Maya looked down at the table, the weight of his words settling in. She had always carried the burden of her life without asking for help, but maybe it was time to change that. Maybe it was time to accept that she didn't have to do it all alone. "Okay," she said finally, her voice small but steady. "I'll try." Liam nodded, his smile widening. "That's all anyone can do," he said. The conversation shifted then, and they spent the next hour talking about everything from Noah's latest antics to the future of the diner where Maya worked. But as they spoke, Maya couldn't help but feel a shift inside her. It was subtle, but it was there. A small crack in the wall she had built around herself. For the first time in a long while, she felt like there was a way forward, like things didn't have to stay as hard as they were. As she left the cafe later that day, a part of her still felt unsure. But another part of her, the part that had been worn down by years of fighting on her own, felt lighter. Maybe, just maybe, Liam was right. Maybe it was time to ask for help. Maybe it was time to trust again. Maya had spent the next few days reflecting on her conversation with Liam. For the first time in a long time, she found herself thinking about what it would be like to accept help. She wasn't used to asking for anything from anyone. Everything in her life had been a constant struggle to keep moving forward, even when she was exhausted. But the offer Liam had extended, and his reassurance that she didn't have to carry everything on her own, had stuck with her. Still, the fear of vulnerability lingered. What if this wasn't real? What if there was some hidden motive behind his kindness? The questions circled in her mind, but she knew she had to at least try. She couldn't keep living the way she had been. There had to be another way. On the morning of their next meeting, Maya was filled with a mix of anticipation and doubt. She had agreed to meet Liam again, this time to talk about her situation more seriously. They had both agreed that the conversation would go beyond small talk. She wasn't sure where it would lead, but she knew she needed to find out. When she arrived at the cafe, Liam was already there, waiting. This time, he wasn't just casually dressed, but in a suit that made him look even more polished than before. He looked up as she walked in and smiled. "Hey Maya, glad you made it," he greeted warmly, standing up to shake her hand. She returned the smile, trying to steady her nerves. "Thanks for taking the time to meet again," she said, sitting down. "Of course," he said, his eyes full of genuine concern. "How have you been?" Maya hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to answer. She didn't want to admit just how much she was struggling, but she knew she needed to be honest. "I'm doing okay, but things are still tough," she said. "It's just hard to keep everything together. Between Noah, the bills, work, it feels like there's always something." Liam nodded thoughtfully. "I get it. Life has a way of piling things on, doesn't it?" he said, his voice calm and understanding. "But you don't have to carry it all by yourself." She looked up at him, her heart pounding. "I know you've said that before," she began, "but it's hard to believe. I've been doing everything alone for so long, and it feels, I don't know, almost impossible to change that." "I understand. It's not easy to ask for help, especially when you've been doing it all on your own for so long," Liam said. "But that's why I'm here, to show you that you don't have to keep pushing through by yourself." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. She had never really allowed herself to be vulnerable in front of anyone, but something about Liam's kindness made her feel like it was okay. "I just don't want to burden anyone," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm afraid that if I let someone help, they'll expect something in return, or that I'll just be seen as weak." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned forward slightly. "Maya, there's nothing weak about accepting help when you need it. And you don't owe me anything. I'm offering because I want to, not because I expect something from you." His words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. It was so simple, yet so powerful. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove that she was strong, that she could handle everything on her own. But now, hearing him speak so honestly, she realized that maybe there was strength in letting others in. "I'm afraid of what will happen if I do," she said, her voice shaky. "I'm afraid of trusting and then being disappointed." "That's a natural fear," Liam said. "But you don't have to trust everyone. Trust is earned. And I'm not asking for your trust all at once. I'm just asking for the chance to help." Maya took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. She had been so focused on keeping control of everything, on not letting anyone else have a say in her life, that she had forgotten what it felt like to let go, even just a little. "I don't know where to start," she said, feeling vulnerable but also relieved. "It's okay," Liam replied, his tone reassuring. "Start small. Take it one step at a time. Maybe it's something as simple as me helping you find some resources for Noah, or helping you figure out a budget that works. We can take it slow." Maya nodded, a sense of hope beginning to replace the doubt she had been carrying. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll try." They spent the next hour talking through practical solutions, ways to make her financial situation more manageable, possible job opportunities, and even finding some local resources that could help with childcare. It wasn't a complete fix, but it was a start. As they wrapped up the meeting, Maya felt a sense of relief she hadn't felt in months. For the first time, it felt like she wasn't just treading water. Liam had given her a lifeline, a glimpse of a future where she didn't have to do everything on her own. "Thank you, Liam," she said, her voice full of sincerity. "I really don't know how to repay you for this." Liam smiled, standing up. "You don't have to repay me. Just know that you don't have to go through this alone. I'll be here to help however I can." As she left the cafe that day, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It wasn't a guarantee that everything would be easy from here on out, but it was a promise that things could get better. And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. Maya's life had begun to feel like a series of small wins, a few steps forward each day. The guidance Liam had offered over the past few weeks had started to make a real difference. With his help, she had started to get her finances in order, and the weight of constantly worrying about bills seemed a little lighter. Every small victory felt like a crack in the wall she had built around herself. For the first time in ages, she allowed herself to hope that things could get better. The next step, though, was one she wasn't entirely sure she was ready for. Liam had suggested that she look into some job opportunities, maybe something that could offer her more stability and financial freedom than the diner could. Maya had been hesitant. She wasn't sure if she could handle anything else on top of everything else she was already juggling. But deep down, she knew she couldn't keep working long hours for low pay forever. It wasn't a sustainable way of living. Still, even as she considered it, she hesitated. Could she really make a change? Could she take that leap? She couldn't quite silence the voice in her head that doubted her ability to succeed. It wasn't long before Liam checked in again, this time asking if she had thought more about the job opportunities. They met once again, this time at a small park near her apartment. As she sat down across from him on the bench, she felt the usual nervousness creep in. "So, how are things going?" Liam asked, his voice warm and encouraging. Maya paused, taking a moment to gather her thoughts before answering. "Things are better. I'm starting to get a grip on things, but..." She hesitated. "I'm still scared. I don't know if I can make a real change. It feels like I've been stuck in this routine for so long. What if I'm just not good enough for something bigger?" Liam smiled at her, a knowing glint in his eyes. "You've already started making changes, Maya. You've already taken the first step by reaching out for help, by accepting that you don't have to do everything alone. That's not something everyone can do." Maya looked at him, a mixture of relief and doubt in her eyes. "But I still don't know what's next. I want something more, but I don't know where to start." "You start where you are," Liam said simply. "You take the skills and experience you already have, and you build on them. You don't need to have everything figured out right now. You just need to take that first step." Maya nodded slowly, the weight of his words settling in. It wasn't about having all the answers. It was about making progress, even if it was just a little bit at a time. "I'll think about it," she said softly. "I just need to take it one step at a time." Liam's smile widened. That's all anyone can do. A few days later, Maya found herself looking at job listings online. She had no idea where to start, but the options felt endless. There were positions for office assistants, customer service roles, and even some in childcare. But every time she clicked on a listing, she froze. She was stuck in the cycle of doubt again. Would she be able to handle the responsibilities? Could she juggle a new job with Noah's needs and her current workload? She closed her laptop, frustration mounting. "What am I doing?" she muttered to herself. "I'll never get anywhere like this." Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. "How's the job search going?" Maya sighed, unsure how to answer. She didn't want to disappoint him, but the truth was that she was struggling. "It's going slow," she replied honestly. "I keep finding myself doubting if I'm even capable of anything more than what I'm doing now." Liam's reply came quickly. "I understand. But remember, it's all about taking small steps. You're already doing more than you realize." Maya looked at the message for a long moment before typing her response. "I guess you're right. I'm just afraid of failing." The text came almost instantly. "Failure is just part of the journey. It's how we learn. I believe in you, Maya. You've got this." For the first time in a long time, Maya felt a surge of determination. Liam's belief in her, his unwavering support, made her believe in herself a little more. Maybe it wasn't about having it all figured out. Maybe it was about moving forward, one small step at a time. She reopened her laptop, feeling a little braver. The job search didn't seem as overwhelming as it had before. She clicked on a listing for an office assistant position. It was part-time, with decent pay, and the hours seemed flexible enough to work around Noah's schedule. It felt like a good place to start. Maya's heart raced as she clicked the Apply Now button. This was it, the first step toward something new. She had no idea where this would lead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was on the right path. A week later, Maya received a call from the company offering her an interview. The excitement was overwhelming. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was progress. It was a chance. The day of the interview arrived, and Maya could hardly contain her nerves. She dressed in the best clothes she had, put on a bit of makeup, and left Noah with a trusted neighbor. As she walked into the building, she took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was a step toward her future. The interview went well. The interviewer was kind, and they seemed impressed by her experience, even if it was just from working at the diner. Maya left feeling cautiously optimistic. A few days later, she received the call. She had gotten the job. It wasn't a dream job, but it was a start. Maya's heart raced as she heard the news. She had done it. She had taken the first step toward a better future for herself and Noah. She thought about everything she had been through, everything Liam had done to help her get here. She wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed that things could be different. Maya felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she walked into her new job on her first day. The office was quiet and well-organized, with the hum of computers and the soft chatter of her new coworkers in the background. It was nothing like the chaotic energy of the diner, but in a way, that was exactly what she needed. She had worked hard for this moment, more than she realized, and now she was here, starting something new. She took a deep breath, adjusting her blouse as she made her way to her desk. It was a small, corner cubicle, just big enough to hold a computer, a phone, and a stack of papers. But it was hers. Maya smiled to herself as she set her purse down and began unpacking the small items she had brought from home. Photos of Noah, a couple of books, and a small plant that she'd been given as a gift. This desk was a symbol of progress, a step toward the future she was working so hard to build. She glanced at the clock. It was almost time for the first meeting of the day. Maya felt her nerves tighten again. Even though she had already spoken with her new manager, Susan, in the interview, the thought of actually meeting her coworkers and getting into the rhythm of the office was still intimidating. She wasn't used to this kind of environment, the kind where everyone was well-dressed and well-spoken, where every conversation seemed to be carefully measured. It was so different from the diner, where the conversation was always loud and casual, where people didn't care about appearances. Still, she had to remind herself that she was here for a reason. She had earned this job. It wasn't a handout. It was a reflection of her hard work and determination. Maya, you ready for the meeting? Susan's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. Maya looked up to see her new manager standing in the doorway, a warm smile on her face. Yeah, sure, Maya replied, standing up quickly. She followed Susan into the conference room, where a few other coworkers were already seated around the large table. Everyone greeted her with polite smiles, and she returned them, though her nerves made her voice come out softer than usual. As the meeting went on, Maya listened intently, trying to absorb everything. The office was busy, and there was a lot to learn. But for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she could do it. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was starting to build something for herself, something stable. That was the moment she realized how far she had come. Just a few months ago, she had been stuck in a cycle of exhaustion and fear, unsure how she was going to make it through each day. Now, she had a real chance at something better. The weeks that followed felt like a blur of new experiences and challenges. Maya threw herself into her work, eager to prove herself and learn as much as she could. She quickly became comfortable with her daily tasks, and even began forming small connections with her coworkers. It wasn't easy, but with every passing day, she felt more confident in her abilities. At home, things were also starting to look up. Noah was doing well, and the stress of constantly worrying about money had started to ease. Maya found herself with a little more time to spend with her son, and she relished the quiet moments they shared. She had even started cooking dinner again, something she hadn't had the energy to do in months. Still, despite the positive changes, there were moments when the weight of her past struggles came rushing back. The fear of failure, the doubt that she was truly capable of maintaining this new life, often crept in during the quiet moments. But when those thoughts came, she reminded herself of the progress she had made. She was working hard, not just for herself, but for Noah too. And that was enough. One afternoon, after a particularly busy day at work, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from Liam. She hadn't heard from him in a while, but she had been thinking about their last conversation and how much his support had meant to her. Hey Maya, I know things have been crazy for you, but I just wanted to check in. How's everything going? Maya smiled as she read the message. She hadn't realized how much she missed talking to him. Despite the progress she had made, there were times when she still felt unsure of herself, and Liam's words always gave her a sense of reassurance. She quickly typed out her response. Hey Liam, everything's going well. I've been busy, but I'm adjusting to the new job. I still can't believe I got it. I knew you could do it, he replied almost immediately. You've been putting in the work, and it's paying off. Maya felt a rush of warmth at his words. It wasn't just about the job. It was about everything that had led her to this point. His belief in her had been a turning point, a moment when she realized she didn't have to do everything alone. "Thank you for believing in me," she wrote back. "I don't think I would have gotten here without your support." The message was simple, but it carried so much weight. Liam's belief in her had been the spark she needed to take those first steps toward change. And now, with each day that passed, she was realizing that she was capable of more than she had ever thought possible. A few days later, Maya found herself sitting in her apartment, looking over her bank statement with a sense of pride. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of stability. She had paid all her bills on time, and there was even a little bit left over. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. She had been so focused on just surviving, but now she was starting to think about the future. Maybe she could even start saving for Noah's college fund, or for the kind of life she had always dreamed of. As she put the statement down, Maya took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. She wasn't there yet, but she was on her way. And for the first time in a long time, she was excited about what was to come. Maya sat quietly at her kitchen table, a cup of coffee in her hands, the steam rising in the early morning light. The past few months had been a whirlwind, and now, as she looked around her apartment, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. She had come so far from where she started, and though there were still challenges ahead, things were different now. Things were better. Her new job was going well. The pay was better, and the hours were manageable, which allowed her to spend more time with Noah. She was still adjusting to the routine, but each day felt like a new opportunity to build something more stable, something lasting. Maya had worked hard for this life, and it was starting to show. Noah was thriving too. His schoolwork was improving, and he had started making friends in the neighborhood. Maya couldn't remember the last time he had been so happy, so full of energy. He was growing up so quickly, and Maya was finally able to give him the attention and support he needed. It was a simple joy, the kind that had been so elusive for so long. And yet, there were moments when the weight of everything, her past, her fears, would creep back into her mind. There were still days when she felt like she wasn't enough, when the anxiety about the future seemed overwhelming. But Liam's words from their last conversation stayed with her. "You don't have to carry it all by yourself." She hadn't truly understood what that meant until now. In the quiet moments, she realized she wasn't alone anymore. She had built a support system around her, her new job, her coworkers, the people in her life who believed in her. And she had Liam. He had become someone she could rely on, someone who understood the struggle and wasn't afraid to lend a hand. It wasn't just about the practical help he had given her, though that had been invaluable. It was the way he had helped her see that she was capable of more than she had ever given herself credit for. Maya had always been her own biggest critic, but now, with Liam's encouragement, she was starting to see herself differently. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. As the days went by, Maya began to feel more at peace with the changes in her life. The fear that had once paralyzed her was now something she could face head-on. She began to embrace the idea of growth, both personal and professional. Her relationship with Liam had evolved too. They had kept in touch regularly, exchanging messages and meeting up every now and then. At first, Maya had been hesitant about how much to open up, but over time, she found herself sharing more with him, letting him in on the little victories, the setbacks, and the dreams she hadn't dared to voice before. Liam had always been supportive, but there was something more now, something unspoken, a deeper connection that was growing between them. He wasn't just offering advice anymore. He was becoming a true part of her life. One evening, after work, Liam invited Maya to dinner. It wasn't the first time they had gone out for a meal, but this time felt different. It was more than just a casual hangout. It was a step toward something more. Maya felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she got ready. She hadn't been on a real date in years, not since her relationship with Noah's father had ended. She had put all of her focus into surviving, into being a mother, that she had forgotten what it was like to think about herself, to think about her own happiness. But as she looked in the mirror that evening, she realized that maybe it was time. Maybe she deserved to be happy too. When she arrived at the restaurant, Liam was already there, waiting for her. He looked sharp, dressed in a dark suit that made him look even more handsome than usual. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she walked toward him. "You look stunning," Liam said as she approached, his smile genuine. Maya felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you. You look pretty good yourself. They sat down at a quiet table, and the conversation flowed easily. Maya talked about work, about Noah, and even about the challenges she still faced. Liam listened, his attention fully on her. He was different from anyone she had ever known, genuine, patient, and kind. The evening was simple but meaningful. As they shared stories and laughs, Maya realized that this was what she had been missing for so long. Human connection. Real, authentic connection. By the end of the night, Maya felt lighter, freer, as though a weight she hadn't even known was there had been lifted. Liam had made her realize that she wasn't just a mother or a worker. She was Maya. She was allowed to have a life, to experience joy, to dream. She had the right to pursue happiness just as much as anyone else. As they parted ways outside the restaurant, Liam smiled at her. "I'm really glad we did this," he said. Maya smiled back. "Me too." The truth was, she wasn't sure where this new path would take her, whether it was with Liam or on her own. But for the first time, she felt ready to find out. She felt ready to embrace whatever came next. As she walked back to her apartment, the cool night air felt different, refreshing, almost freeing. She wasn't just carrying the weight of her life anymore. She was stepping into a new chapter, one where she had the power to shape her own future. And for the first time in a long time, Maya believed that whatever happened, she would be okay. Maya woke up to the soft rays of morning sunlight filtering through her curtains. She stretched, feeling the weight of the day ahead settling in, but instead of the usual dread that used to follow such thoughts, there was a feeling of calm. The past few weeks had been filled with small victories, and each day felt a little more like she was stepping into the life she had always wanted. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She stood up, looking over at the clock. She was running a bit behind schedule, but she didn't mind as much anymore. In the past, the rush to get everything right, to be on time and flawless, had drained her. Now, the mornings felt a little more forgiving. She made herself a quick breakfast, her mind wandering as she thought about the conversation she had with Liam the night before. It had been a turning point. It wasn't just the dinner or the laughter they shared. It was the quiet moments between the words, the way he listened, the way he cared. Maya didn't realize how much she had been missing that kind of attention, that kind of connection, until it was right in front of her. She had never thought much about relationships before. After everything she had been through, after raising Noah alone for so long, she had convinced herself that love wasn't something she needed. But now, as she looked at how much her life had changed since meeting Liam, she started to wonder if she had been wrong. Maybe she could let someone in. Maybe there was space for something more in her life. She wasn't sure where this was heading with Liam, but she knew she wasn't as afraid of it as she had been before. After all, she had learned to trust herself again, and maybe now, she could trust someone else too. After finishing breakfast, Maya rushed out the door, already thinking about the tasks waiting for her at work. As she walked through the quiet streets, she reflected on how much had shifted for her in the last few months. She had gone from barely surviving to actually living. She had a steady job, her finances were improving, and most importantly, she had found a sense of peace that she had never felt before. But still, there were challenges ahead. Being a single mother was never easy, and Maya knew she couldn't rest on her laurels. There was always something more to do, always another hurdle to jump. And yet, she didn't feel overwhelmed anymore. She felt prepared. The shift in her mindset had been subtle, but it had made all the difference. She no longer viewed every challenge as an obstacle too big to overcome. Instead, she saw them as opportunities for growth, for learning, for change. She was still on the journey, but now, it felt more like an adventure than a battle. When Maya arrived at the office, she was greeted by her coworkers with smiles and small talk, and for the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. She wasn't just the new girl anymore. She was part of the team. As the day went on, she found herself feeling more confident in her role. The work wasn't easy, but it felt manageable. Every task she completed, every small success, made her feel more capable. By the end of the day, she was exhausted but proud of the progress she had made. That evening, as she got ready to call it a day, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "How's the day been?" he asked. Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. It was a simple message, but it meant more than she realized. "Busy but good. I'm starting to get the hang of things," she replied. Liam responded almost immediately. "I knew you would. You've got this, Maya." She read his words with a smile, feeling a little more encouraged than before. She hadn't realized how much his support had come to mean to her until now. It was more than just advice. It was the reassurance that she wasn't alone. That night, after Noah was in bed, Maya found herself reflecting on how far she had come. It wasn't just about her career or her finances. It was about the way she viewed herself. She had spent so many years doubting her worth, believing that she wasn't capable of more. But now, as she looked at everything she had accomplished, she realized that she had been wrong. She was strong. She was capable. And she was worthy of all the good things that were starting to come her way. The next few days passed quickly, filled with work, moments with Noah, and texts from Liam. They were still getting to know each other, but there was something undeniable between them. Maya had never been one to rush into anything, but she felt like she was on the verge of something important. As she stood in the kitchen one evening, preparing dinner for herself and Noah, she realized something. She was finally starting to dream again. She wasn't just focused on survival anymore. She was thinking about the future. She was thinking about what she wanted her life to look like, not just for herself, but for Noah too. It was a powerful shift in perspective, one she hadn't even realized was happening. And as she sat down to eat with Noah that evening, she felt more at peace than she had in years. Her journey wasn't over, but it was no longer one of just getting by. It was a journey of growth, of connection, and of possibility. She was ready for whatever came next, and for the first time in a long time, she knew that no matter what, she would be okay. Maya sat at her desk, the soft glow of the desk lamp illuminating the papers in front of her. It had been a few weeks since she had settled into her new job, and though she was still adjusting, she felt more confident with each passing day. She no longer felt like an outsider, like someone who didn't belong. Now, it felt like a second home. Work had been going smoothly, and she had even started to take on more responsibility. Her coworkers were friendly, and her manager, Susan, had been impressed with her progress. Maya had found herself enjoying the challenges that came with her new role. The tasks were different from the diner, but they felt more fulfilling, more aligned with what she had always hoped for. The sense of routine, though it had taken some getting used to, now brought a sense of stability she hadn't had in years. Outside of work, things were going well too. Noah had settled into a new rhythm, his schoolwork improving, and he had even started playing soccer with a group of kids from the neighborhood. Maya had been able to attend every game, cheering him on. From the sidelines, it felt good to be present in his life again, to not have to worry about missing out on these precious moments. Still, as Maya sat there, she felt a small, nagging worry in the back of her mind. It wasn't about her work or Noah, it was about the next steps. She had spent so much time focusing on getting by, on surviving, that now she wasn't sure what to aim for next. What did she want for herself? What was her next goal? She had taken the first step by leaving the diner behind, and now she had a job she enjoyed, but there was something more she wanted. It was as if she had reached a plateau, a point where she needed to decide what came next. Was it about climbing the career ladder? Was it about building a bigger savings account? Or was it about something else entirely? The uncertainty lingered. Just then, her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking her from her thoughts. It was a message from Liam. She smiled before opening it. "Hey Maya, I know we've both been busy, but I was thinking, maybe we could catch up this weekend? Grab a coffee or something." Maya read the message again, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Liam had become an important part of her life. Their conversations had become more frequent, and with each one, Maya found herself opening up more and more. He was patient, kind, and he made her feel seen, not just as a mother or a worker, but as herself. She typed out a quick response. "I'd love that. It's been a while since we've had time to just talk." She hit send, and immediately felt a little lighter. Liam had always been a steady presence, someone who helped her keep perspective during the crazier moments of her life. It was easy to talk to him, and she found herself looking forward to their conversations in a way that she hadn't expected. She hadn't thought about a relationship in so long, not since the days when she was with Noah's father. Back then, her life had revolved around just getting by. There hadn't been room for much else. But now, as she thought about Liam, she realized that maybe there was room for more. Not just for her, but for Noah too. Liam had been supportive of her journey, but it wasn't just about him offering advice. He was someone who believed in her, someone who had given her the courage to start believing in herself again. And while she wasn't rushing into anything, The connection between them felt real. That Saturday, they met at a small cafe downtown. It was the same place they had gone to before, a quiet spot that felt comfortable and familiar. When Maya walked in, she spotted Liam immediately. He was already sitting at their usual table, looking up as she approached. "Hey there," he greeted with a smile, standing up as she sat down. "It's good to see you again." Maya returned his smile, feeling a little bit of her usual nerves melt away. "Good to see you too. How's your week been?" "Busy but good." "You know, the usual," Liam replied. They chatted for a while about work, about their lives, but as the conversation flowed, Maya felt something shift. The small talk wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was the way they were able to be open with each other, to share the things that were on their minds. Eventually, the topic of the future came up. "So, Maya," Liam began, his tone gentle, "what's next for you? You've come so far already, but I know you're still figuring out where you want to go from here." Maya took a deep breath, her mind racing. "I've been thinking about that," she admitted. "I've made progress, but I'm not sure what comes next. I feel like I'm at a crossroads." Liam nodded, listening intently. "That makes sense. You've worked so hard to get here, but it's hard to know what to aim for when you're in the middle of a change." "Exactly," Maya said. "I'm grateful for everything I've accomplished, but I don't want to just stay here. I want to keep growing, but I'm not sure what that looks like yet." Liam smiled softly. "That's okay. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Sometimes, the next step comes to you when you least expect it. You're doing great. The most important thing is that you're open to it." Maya felt a weight lift off her shoulders at his words. She hadn't realized how much pressure she had been putting on herself to have everything figured out. "Thanks, Liam," she said quietly. "You always know exactly what to say." Liam's expression softened, and for a moment, it felt like everything in her life was falling into place. It wasn't about having a perfect plan. It was about being open to the possibilities, trusting herself, and knowing that whatever came next, she would be okay. As the afternoon wore on, Maya felt lighter. The uncertainty didn't feel so heavy anymore. With Liam's support, she was starting to realize that the future didn't have to be a fixed destination. It could be a journey, one that unfolded in its own time. And for the first time, she was excited to see where it would take her. Maya felt the change the moment she woke up that Saturday morning. It wasn't just another weekend, another day to get through. It felt like the beginning of something new. The week had been full of little successes. Things were clicking into place, both at work and at home. She was no longer just trying to survive each day. Now, she was living, actively moving toward the future she had once only dreamed of. Noah was at his weekend soccer practice, so she had the house to herself for a few hours. She could already hear his excited chatter when she would pick him up, but for now, she relished the quiet. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, the soft sunlight streaming through the window, casting a warm glow on everything. She felt, for the first time in a long time, truly at peace. But peace didn't mean complacency. She had been thinking about her next steps, about the path ahead. Even though she had made significant progress, the nagging thought about what she wanted to do next had started to take root. Maya had come so far, but now she needed to determine where she wanted to go. What was the next goal, the next challenge? What kind of future did she want for herself and for Noah? The truth was, she had spent so long putting her energy into surviving, into making it through each day, that she hadn't really thought about what came after that. She was good at getting through tough times, but she had to admit, the idea of actually living a life she wanted, something beyond just paying bills and getting by, was a bit intimidating. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to embrace the uncertainty. Maybe she didn't have all the answers yet. Maybe she didn't need to. But what she did know was that she was ready to move forward. She had done the hardest part. She had taken control of her life again. Now, it was time to figure out what she truly wanted. A knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. Maya glanced at the clock. It was too early for Noah to be back, and she wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see Liam standing there. He looked casual but handsome in a simple shirt and jeans, holding a small bouquet of flowers in his hand. "Hey, Maya," he greeted with that warm smile she had come to enjoy so much. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Maya stepped aside, her heart skipping a beat. "No, not at all," she said, feeling a little flustered. "What's this?" she asked, gesturing to the flowers. "Just a little something," Liam said with a shrug. I thought I'd drop by and see how you're doing. You've been working so hard lately, and I thought you deserved something nice. Maya smiled, touched by his gesture. She had always thought of herself as the one who gave, not the one who received. But Liam's thoughtfulness made her realize how much she had been missing the little acts of kindness that came from others. It was the kind of gesture that made her feel truly seen. Thank you, she said, taking the flowers from him. I appreciate it. Liam smiled, stepping inside. I just wanted to check in. You're doing great, but I thought maybe we could talk about the next steps you're thinking of. Maya hesitated for a moment. She had been thinking about this very thing, but it felt strange to say it out loud. I've been thinking a lot about that, she admitted. I'm doing okay, but I'm not sure what I want for the future yet. I've been so focused on just getting through the day-to-day stuff. I haven't really figured out where I want to go from here. Liam nodded. That's completely understandable. You've done a lot already. But now, it's about dreaming a little. What do you want, Maya? She looked at him, feeling her heart race. The truth was, she hadn't really allowed herself to dream in years. She had been too busy surviving, making sure Noah had everything he needed. But now, with Liam's gentle encouragement, she felt like she could take a step toward that future, that bigger life she had always envisioned for herself. I guess I want more than just surviving. I want a life where I don't have to worry about every little thing. I want stability for Noah, for both of us. I want to build something for the future. Maya paused, thinking carefully about her next words. But I also want to be able to enjoy the little things, to live without feeling like I'm always fighting to keep my head above water. Liam smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. But just by asking yourself these questions, you're already moving toward what you want. You've taken the hardest step, Maya. You've started. The warmth in his voice made her feel like maybe she wasn't as lost as she had thought. She had already come so far. There was no reason she couldn't take the next step, even if she didn't have all the answers yet. Thank you, Liam, she said softly. I don't know where I'd be without your support. Liam's smile deepened. You're doing all the hard work, Maya. I'm just here to remind you that you're capable of more than you know. They sat down at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and talking about everything and nothing. As they talked, Maya realized something important. She wasn't alone in this anymore. She had built a foundation for herself and Noah, and now, with Liam's support and her own determination, she was ready to start building the future she wanted. The conversation drifted to the future, to possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt hopeful. The weight of her past struggles wasn't gone, but it no longer defined her. She was more than her past. She was the woman who had made it through, who had learned and grown, and who was ready to take on whatever came next. And that was enough. Maya woke up the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just another day. It was a day full of potential, a day where she felt ready to take the next steps in her life. After her conversation with Liam the day before, something had clicked inside her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning to live again. The uncertainty that had once plagued her was still there, but it no longer had the power to hold her back. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by what was to come, she felt excited for the future. She spent the morning sorting through some paperwork, organizing her thoughts for the next steps she needed to take. It wasn't just about work anymore, although that was still a huge part of her life. It was about something bigger, finding balance and making sure Noah had a stable, happy life. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. When she opened it, she was greeted by a familiar face, Liam. He was holding a small coffee cup in each hand, a grin on his face. I thought you might need a little pick-me-up, he said, handing her a cup. Maya smiled, feeling the warmth of the coffee in her hands and the comfort of his presence. Thank you, she said, stepping aside to let him in. Liam looked around the apartment, his eyes lighting up as he took in the small changes Maya had made to the space. It looks great in here, he said, taking a seat at the kitchen table. You've really made it your own. Maya felt a wave of pride. This apartment, once just a temporary place to stay, now felt like home. Thanks, she said. I've been working on it. One step at a time. They sipped their coffee, the conversation flowing easily between them. It wasn't just about the little things anymore, the small talk they'd shared in the beginning. This was different. There was a deeper connection, a sense of understanding. After a while, the conversation turned to what was next for Maya. She hadn't told Liam much about the steps she had been thinking about taking, the changes she was considering. She wasn't sure why, but it felt easier to share those thoughts with him now. I've been thinking a lot about where I want to go from here, Maya began, her voice quiet but steady. I know I've made a lot of progress, but I want to keep moving forward. I want to make sure that Noah has a solid future, and I want to be able to build something more for both of us. I guess I'm just figuring out how to take the next step. Liam listened intently, nodding as she spoke. That's understandable. You've come so far, Maya. You've already made some huge changes, and it sounds like you're thinking about the bigger picture now. Yeah, she said, nodding. It's not just about surviving anymore. I want to build a future, a stable life. I want to start saving more. I want to look at maybe moving into a better place, and I want to be able to give Noah the opportunities he deserves. But I don't know where to begin. Liam smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. You're already on the right track. The fact that you're thinking about the future means you're already setting yourself up for success. It's all about taking one step at a time. You don't have to have it all figured out today. The important part is that you're moving forward. Maya took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't seem so intimidating. It felt like a blank page, one she could fill with the choices she made. Thank you, she said softly, looking at Liam. I don't think I would have gotten this far without your support. Liam reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. You've done all the hard work, Maya. I'm just here to remind you that you're capable of more than you think. Maya's heart fluttered at the simple gesture. There was something in his words, something in the way he looked at her that made her believe in herself a little more. She wasn't sure where things were going with Liam, but she knew that he had been an important part of her journey. He had given her the courage to take those first steps, to believe that she could build a life worth living. The next few days passed in a blur. Maya threw herself into work, continuing to prove to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever realized. But at night, when the apartment was quiet, her thoughts would drift back to the bigger questions. What did she want for her future? What kind of life did she want to build for herself and Noah? She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that she was getting closer to finding them. One evening, as Maya was finishing dinner, she received a call from a financial advisor she had recently contacted. She had been meaning to get her finances in order, but now, with her newfound sense of purpose, she was ready to take action. Hi, Maya. This is Emily from the Financial Planning Service. I wanted to follow up on your inquiry. Are you still interested in setting up a meeting? Maya smiled as she thought about the possibilities. Yes, I'd love to set something up. They scheduled a meeting for the following week. It was just another step, but it was a big one. For the first time, Maya felt like she was taking control of her future. She wasn't just reacting to life anymore. She was actively shaping it. As the week went on, Maya's confidence grew. She continued to make progress at work, and her relationship with Liam became even more supportive and meaningful. But it was in these quiet moments, when she was alone with her thoughts, that she realized how much she had changed. She wasn't just a single mom trying to survive anymore. She was a woman who had a vision for her future, someone who was ready to take on whatever came next. And for the first time, she truly believed she could make it happen. Maya stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her jacket. The meeting with the financial advisor was scheduled for later that day, and she wanted to feel confident as she took this important step toward securing her future. As she glanced at her reflection, she couldn't help but notice how much had changed in just a few months. The woman staring back at her wasn't the same person who had walked into that cafe all those weeks ago, unsure of what her next move should be. She had grown, not just in her career, but in her ability to believe in herself, to take charge of her life and her future. She had come a long way from the woman who had been just trying to survive. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. She wasn't sure where this journey would lead, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready. When she arrived at the financial planning office, Maya was greeted by Emily, the advisor she had spoken to on the phone. Emily led her to a comfortable meeting room, offering her a seat at the table. Maya could feel the nerves creeping back, but she was determined not to let them control her. She was here for a reason, to take control of her financial future and make sure that the life she was building for herself and Noah would be secure. As Emily began explaining the different options available for budgeting, saving, and investing, Maya listened intently. She had always been good at managing her day-to-day expenses, but this was different. This was about setting herself and Noah up for long-term success. As the conversation progressed, Maya felt a sense of clarity start to form. She had spent so much time focusing on the immediate needs, paying bills, getting by, that she had never taken the time to think about the bigger picture. But now, with Emily's help, she was starting to see the possibilities. Emily laid out a plan for Maya, one that included setting up a savings account for emergency funds, starting a small investment portfolio, and beginning to plan for Noah's future education. Maya was amazed at how much could be accomplished with a little planning and structure. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was possible. By the end of the meeting, Maya felt a sense of empowerment she hadn't felt before. She was taking concrete steps toward securing her and Noah's future. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving. After the meeting, Maya walked out of the office feeling a little lighter, a little more at ease. She had a plan now, a roadmap for the future, and for the first time, she could see where she was headed. She felt a sense of excitement about what was to come. As she got into her car and drove home, Maya's mind raced with the possibilities. The financial plan wasn't perfect, and there would be challenges along the way, but she knew it was a step in the right direction. She could finally see a future that wasn't defined by struggle and worry, but by hope and opportunity. When she got home, Noah was already there, sitting on the couch with his homework spread out in front of him. She smiled at him as she walked in, and he looked up, grinning back. "How was the meeting, Mom?" he asked. Maya sat down next to him, ruffling his hair. "It went really well, buddy," she said. "I've got a plan now. We're going to be okay." Noah looked up at her, his eyes filled with trust. "I know we will," he said, his small voice full of certainty. Maya's heart swelled with pride. She had always tried to protect Noah from the struggles she faced, but today, she realized something. He had always known that they could handle whatever came their way, together. That night, as Maya lay in bed, she reflected on everything that had happened. She had come so far, but there was still more to do. The future was no longer a source of fear. It was a place full of possibilities. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she knew that with each step she took, she was getting closer to the life she wanted. She was no longer just surviving. She was living. And no matter what came next, she was ready for it. She had learned to trust herself, to trust that she could overcome whatever obstacles came her way. The road ahead wasn't always going to be easy, but she was no longer afraid of it. With each step, she was becoming the woman she had always wanted to be, a woman who was strong, capable, and in control of her future. And as she drifted off to sleep, Maya felt a sense of peace wash over her. She wasn't alone in this journey anymore. She had the support of people who cared, and she had herself. And that was enough. Maya had been feeling the weight of the changes she had made over the past few months, but today was different. Today, she could feel herself standing on the edge of something new. She had worked hard for everything she had, her job, the stability she was beginning to build, the trust she had started to feel in herself. But there was still one thing she hadn't fully embraced yet, the idea that she could have everything. She had always been taught that success came with sacrifices, that there was only so much she could have before something had to give. But after everything she had been through, she was beginning to realize that maybe she could have it all: a career, a stable future, a life that was full of meaning and happiness. The thought was still new, a little uncomfortable, but it also felt right. And she wasn't willing to shy away from it anymore. As she sat at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee, Maya looked at her phone and saw a message from Liam. They had kept in touch regularly, but today, the message felt different. "Hey Maya, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I'd really like to talk. When you have time, maybe we can meet up?" Maya smiled to herself. There had been something about Liam that had always made her feel like she wasn't just another project, like she was someone worth investing in. He wasn't just interested in her success in the workplace. He was genuinely interested in her as a person, and that was something Maya had never fully realized until now. He had been her rock, her reminder that she wasn't alone, and as she sat there reading his message, she knew that whatever happened next, she had the support to get through it. She responded quickly, "I'd love to meet. I'll be free this afternoon if that works for you." Liam replied almost immediately, "Perfect. I'll see you then." Maya put her phone down and leaned back in her chair, thinking about the journey she had been on. It hadn't been easy, far from it, but every step had brought her closer to understanding who she was and what she wanted. She had spent years running on autopilot, reacting to life's challenges, never really taking the time to consider what she wanted for herself. But now, with Liam's support, she was beginning to understand that she could dream big. She could have a future filled with happiness, purpose, and success. As she finished her coffee, Maya felt a sense of calm settle over her. She wasn't afraid of the future anymore. She wasn't afraid of the changes she had to make. She was ready. Later that afternoon, Maya met Liam at the same cafe they had visited before. He was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table, waiting with a soft smile. There was something different about him today. He seemed more relaxed, more open, as if he was ready to share something important. "Hey, Maya," he greeted her as she sat down. "How's everything going?" Maya smiled, feeling a sense of warmth from his genuine inquiry. "It's going well. Work is steady, and Noah is doing great. Things are finally feeling like they're falling into place." "I'm glad to hear that," Liam said, leaning forward. "I've been thinking a lot lately about how far you've come. You've really transformed your life, Maya. I know it hasn't been easy, but you've done it. And I just want you to know that I'm proud of you." Maya blinked in surprise, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that, how much it meant to have someone believe in her beyond just the practical aspects of her life. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot to me. I've been working so hard to get to this point, and I guess I didn't even realize how much I needed to hear that I'm on the right track." Liam smiled, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made Maya's heart race. "You've always been on the right track, Maya. You just had to see it yourself. You've been doing everything for so long, for Noah, for the future. But now, I think it's time for you to take a step back and focus on what you want. Not just what you think you should want. What you really want." Maya felt a wave of emotion rise within her, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. She hadn't really stopped to consider what she wanted, not in the grand scheme of things. Of course, she wanted a good life for Noah, stability, a secure future. But what about her? What was it that would truly make her happy? The question lingered in her mind, and she knew that it was time to start asking it. "I've been so focused on making sure everything is right for Noah, for the future. I haven't really thought about what makes me happy," Maya admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been so afraid that I'd lose sight of what's important. But now I'm not so sure." Liam reached across the table, his hand gently covering hers. "Maya, you're not going to lose sight of what's important. You're doing exactly what you need to do. But you can't pour from an empty cup. You deserve to be happy too. You deserve to live the life you've been working so hard to build. And you deserve to have everything you want, everything." His words were simple, but they carried so much weight. Maya felt a lump form in her throat, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from the realization that she could have everything. It wasn't selfish. It wasn't too much to ask. She had worked for it, fought for it, and now she was ready to embrace it. "Thank you, Liam," she said, her voice steady now. "I think I'm starting to understand what you mean. I don't have to choose between my happiness and Noah's future. I can have both." Liam smiled softly, his expression full of pride. Exactly. As they sat there, talking about the future, Maya knew that she was no longer just surviving. She was living, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly ready for whatever came next. Maya had never felt so full of hope as she did in the days that followed her conversation with Liam. She had always known the importance of stability, of securing a future for herself and Noah, but now, for the first time, she could truly see the possibilities. She wasn't just building a life on the edge of survival. She was creating something meaningful. Her focus had shifted from getting through each day to embracing the idea that she could make choices for herself. What she wanted was starting to matter just as much as what Noah needed. It was a balancing act, one that she hadn't known how to approach before, but she was learning how to navigate it. The first test of this new mindset came a few weeks later when an opportunity arose at work. Maya's manager, Susan, had called her into the office one afternoon. She had been doing well, better than expected, and Susan was impressed with her progress. "Maya, I've been really pleased with your work," Susan began. "We have an opening for a more senior position in the department, and I think you'd be a great fit. I'd like you to consider applying." Maya's heart skipped a beat. A promotion. It was something she hadn't even considered, something she had only dreamed of when she was still working at the diner, barely scraping by. This was a different world, one where hard work could lead to real opportunities. She sat for a moment, processing the offer. She had never been one to rush into things, but this felt different. This was her chance to take that next step, to show herself that she could go beyond what she thought possible. But the hesitation crept in. She had just started to feel comfortable in her current role. Was she ready for more responsibility? Could she handle it with everything else on her plate? She thought back to the conversation she had had with Liam, about how she deserved to take steps forward, not just for Noah, but for herself. She had spent so much time doubting herself, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this was the perfect opportunity. She had worked hard, and she was ready to prove it. "I'd like to apply," Maya finally said, her voice steady. Susan smiled, clearly pleased with her decision. "That's great to hear, Maya. I'll send over the details, and we'll get you started with the process. You've earned it." As Maya left the office, she felt a surge of excitement. She had made the decision. Now, it was time to prove to herself that she was ready for the challenge. She could feel the weight of the moment, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like the natural next step, a part of the journey she had been working toward. When she got home that evening, she couldn't wait to tell Noah about the opportunity. He had always been her biggest cheerleader, and his excitement would make everything feel even more real. As she sat with him at dinner, she shared the news. "Guess what, buddy? I got the chance to apply for a promotion at work." Noah's eyes lit up, and he grinned. "That's awesome, Mom. You've been working so hard. You totally deserve it." Maya smiled at him, feeling her heart swell with pride. "Thanks, Noah. It feels like things are finally starting to come together." Later that night, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, reflecting on everything that had led her here. She had come so far from where she had started, from the days when she had been trapped in a cycle of survival, unsure of how she was going to make it. Now, she had options. She had choices. And the best part? She had control. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Maya worked on her application for the promotion, preparing herself for the interview. She was nervous, but in a way, it felt good to be nervous about something that wasn't just about getting by. It was about building her future. As the interview day approached, Maya found herself more and more confident. She had everything she needed to succeed. She had the experience, the determination, and, most importantly, the belief in herself that had been growing with every passing day. The interview went well. Maya felt like she had given it her best shot, and when the call came the next week, she wasn't completely surprised to hear that she had been selected for the promotion. The feeling that washed over her was one of accomplishment, of validation. She had done it, and she had done it on her own terms. She was ready for this next step, and she knew that she could handle it, just like she had handled everything else that had come her way. As she hung up the phone, Maya couldn't help but think about how far she had come. From the single mother struggling to make ends meet to the woman sitting here today, excited about the opportunities ahead of her. She had found the strength to keep going, to believe in herself, and to embrace the idea that she could have everything she wanted. And now, the next chapter was beginning. She had made it this far, and there was no going back. As she walked into her new role, ready to take on the challenges ahead, Maya felt a deep sense of pride. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a creator of her own destiny. She had worked hard for this moment, and now it was time to enjoy the fruits of that labor. She wasn't just building a life for Noah, she was building a life for herself. And with every step, she was getting closer to the life she had always dreamed of. Maya walked into her new office, feeling the familiar rush of excitement mixed with nervousness. It had been a few weeks since she was promoted, and now, standing in front of her new desk, she could hardly believe how far she had come. The last few months had been a blur of change, but each step had felt like a building block in her new life. This promotion wasn't just about the job. It was a sign that she had transformed. She had shifted from struggling to thrive, from merely surviving to actively building the future she wanted. Today was another step in that journey. As she settled into her new role, Maya quickly realized that things were different now. The responsibilities were more demanding, and there were higher expectations, but she didn't shy away from them. Instead, she leaned in, determined to prove to herself that she could handle it all. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, deadlines, and adjustments, but as she navigated her new tasks, she found herself becoming more confident. She had always been capable, but now she was finally giving herself credit for it. With each completed project, and every positive feedback from her manager, Susan, Maya's confidence grew. And the best part? She was still making time for Noah, still present in his life, cheering him on at soccer games, helping him with his homework, and giving him the love and attention he needed. It wasn't just about the promotion. It was about having the balance she had always wanted. Maya wasn't just a mother. She was a professional, an individual, and she was finally finding the harmony between those roles. One evening, after a long day at work, Maya sat on the couch with Noah, catching up on their day. She smiled at him as he recounted his adventures at school. "Guess what, Mom? I made a new friend today," he said excitedly, his eyes sparkling. Maya laughed, feeling a sense of pride and joy. "That's awesome, buddy. I'm so proud of you." As they sat together, Maya couldn't help but reflect on how much her life had changed. She remembered the days when she had barely enough time to think, when every day was a struggle to keep things together. Now, she had the room to breathe, to dream, and to enjoy the little moments. Things weren't perfect. There were still challenges to face, but she had a sense of control, of purpose. She was no longer afraid of the future. She was embracing it. A few days later, Maya got a call from Liam. They hadn't seen each other much lately due to their busy schedules, but they had stayed in touch, sharing updates and checking in on each other. "Hey Maya," Liam's voice came through the phone. "I've been thinking about you. How's everything going with the promotion? I bet you're killing it." Maya smiled as she replied, "It's going great, actually. It's a lot to handle, but I feel good about it. It's been a lot of work, but I'm finally starting to feel like I belong here." "I knew you would," Liam said with a tone of pride in his voice. "You've always been strong, Maya. You've earned every bit of it." His words filled her with warmth. "Thank you, Liam. That means a lot to me." They continued chatting, and soon, the conversation shifted to more personal matters. "So, how are you doing outside of work?" Liam asked, his voice softening. Maya paused for a moment, considering his question. It was the first time someone had really asked how she was doing, not just about her work or responsibilities. For a moment, she realized that she hadn't really taken a step back to reflect on her own life, outside of the tasks and duties she had been juggling. "I'm doing well," she said, though there was a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "I'm adjusting to everything, balancing work and home. It's a lot, but I'm managing." "Managing is good," Liam said. "But are you taking time for yourself? Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. She had been so focused on everything else, her job, Noah, her responsibilities, that she hadn't really given much thought to her own happiness. "I think I am," she replied slowly. "But there's always so much to do, and I feel like I'm constantly in motion, trying to keep up with everything. Sometimes I forget to take a moment for myself." Liam's voice softened even further. "You deserve that, Maya. You're doing so much for everyone around you. Don't forget to take care of yourself, too. You can't pour from an empty cup." His words lingered in her mind long after the conversation ended. It wasn't that she didn't care about herself. It was just that she had been so focused on making sure everything else was in place that she had neglected to focus on her own needs. The next day, as Maya walked into work, she found herself thinking more deeply about Liam's advice. She realized that while she had been moving forward, creating a life for herself and Noah, she hadn't been fully present in her own well-being. Maybe it was time to take a step back, to take care of herself, and to make sure that the life she was building wasn't just for others, but for herself too. That afternoon, during a break, Maya decided to step outside for a walk. It was a small act, but it felt important. She needed to take time for herself, to reconnect with what she wanted beyond the roles she played. As she walked, she found herself enjoying the quiet, the fresh air, and the feeling of not having to rush anywhere. It was in those moments of stillness that she realized something. She was enough. She was doing enough. She didn't have to be everything for everyone all the time. It was okay to slow down, to breathe, and to appreciate the life she had built. When she returned home later that evening, she found Noah on the couch, finishing his homework. He looked up at her, a big smile on his face. "How was your walk, Mom?" he asked. Maya smiled back, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. "It was great, buddy. I think I needed that." As she sat down beside him, she realized that taking time for herself was just another way of showing up for Noah. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, and she was ready to keep moving forward, with a full heart and a clear mind, embracing every moment along the way. Maya woke up the next morning with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in a long time. It was a crisp Saturday, the kind of morning that felt like a fresh start, and it was the perfect time for reflection. She had made so many changes in the past year, taking that new job, going after her promotion, learning to balance work and home life. But now it felt like she was standing at a new crossroads. She was no longer just surviving or putting out fires. She was living and planning for a future. Maya felt proud of herself for the first time in a long time, but she also knew there was still more to accomplish. Noah had become more independent lately, and Maya had noticed that the time they spent together was becoming more meaningful. The pressures of juggling a job, parenting, and trying to make ends meet were still there, but they didn't feel as overwhelming. She had learned to trust herself, to rely on her own strength, and to ask for help when needed. She was beginning to see that life was not about perfection, but about progress. That morning, as she sat in the quiet of her apartment with a cup of coffee, Maya realized that one of the things she had been missing was a deeper sense of connection with her own passions. Over the past few years, her focus had been entirely on survival and the responsibilities of being a single mother. She had put her dreams aside for a while, thinking they were out of reach. But now, with a stable job and the financial foundation she had been building, she realized that it might finally be time to revisit those dreams. She pulled out an old notebook from her desk drawer, one she hadn't looked at in years. It was filled with scribbled notes, ideas, and sketches, things she had once hoped to pursue but put on hold. As she flipped through the pages, she felt a sense of longing mixed with excitement. Some of these ideas were practical, like starting a small side business that she had always wanted to try. Others were more creative, like learning photography or taking up painting. But for the first time in a while, she allowed herself to think beyond the confines of her daily routine. She was more than just a mother and an employee. She was Maya, a woman with her own passions and potential. She set the notebook aside and glanced out the window, deep in thought. The idea of pursuing something just for herself was both exhilarating and daunting. She wasn't sure how to make it work with everything else on her plate, but she knew she needed to try. The question was, what would she choose first? That afternoon, after spending time with Noah at the park, Maya met up with Liam for coffee. They had continued to stay in touch regularly, and their friendship had deepened. It wasn't just about advice anymore. It was about supporting each other, sharing life's ups and downs. As they sat at their usual cafe, sipping coffee, Maya shared her thoughts. "I've been thinking a lot about something," she said, her voice tentative. "I've been so focused on taking care of everything. Noah, my job, but I feel like I'm missing something. I used to have dreams, things I wanted to do, but I let them go for so long. Now I feel like I'm ready to start thinking about them again." Liam looked at her, his eyes warm with understanding. "That's amazing, Maya," he said. "It's not always easy to admit that we need to pursue our own passions, especially when we're so focused on others. But you deserve that, too. You deserve to have something that excites you, something just for you." Maya nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. "I just don't know where to start. I've been so focused on survival that I haven't even thought about what I want in the long run." Liam smiled, his expression thoughtful. "The important part is that you're thinking about it now. It's never too late to start pursuing your dreams. The key is to take small steps, one at a time. You don't have to have it all figured out today." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of reassurance wash over her. Liam had a way of making things seem less daunting. "You're right," she said. "Maybe I don't need to have everything figured out. I just need to take one small step forward." The rest of their conversation drifted toward lighter topics, but Maya couldn't stop thinking about what Liam had said. She was ready to take that first step, even if it was just a small one. Later that evening, as Maya was getting Noah ready for bed, she realized something important. She had spent so much time focusing on what she couldn't control, but now she was beginning to take control of the things that mattered to her. She didn't have to be just a mother, just a worker, just someone who survived. She could be all of those things, and more. The next day, Maya took the first step. She signed up for an online photography class, something she had always wanted to do but never felt like she had the time for. It was a small step, but it felt significant. She didn't know where it would lead, but she was excited to start this new chapter. As the weeks passed, Maya continued to juggle her work, parenting, and her newfound passion for photography. It wasn't always easy, but it felt good to have something that was just for her, something that made her feel alive. She started taking photos of everyday moments. Noah at soccer practice, the flowers blooming outside her apartment, the sunset over the city. Slowly, she began to see the world through a different lens, one that was filled with beauty and possibility. One afternoon, after a photography class, Maya met Liam for coffee again. She showed him some of her photos, her heart racing a little as she handed him her phone. "These are incredible, Maya," Liam said, his eyes lighting up. "You have real talent. I'm so glad you decided to pursue this." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of pride. "It's just the beginning, but it feels good to finally be doing something for myself." As she left the cafe that day, Maya realized that she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. She had taken control of her future, not just for Noah, but for herself. She had found a new purpose, a new passion, and it was only the beginning. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Maya felt ready for whatever came next. Maya stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the hem of her new dress. It was the day of her first photography exhibit, an event she had been working toward for months. The photographs she had captured, of her son, of nature, of simple moments, were finally coming together in a way that made her feel proud. A year ago, she had never imagined that she would be standing here, preparing to share her work with the world. She had spent so many years focused solely on survival, on doing what was necessary to get by, that she had forgotten what it felt like to dream, to create, to pursue something just for her. But now, as she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw someone different. She saw a woman who had taken control of her life, someone who had embraced change and found joy in it. She wasn't just a single mother. She was an artist, a professional, a woman who was living a life full of possibility. When she arrived at the gallery, the space was already buzzing with excitement. People milled around, admiring the photographs that adorned the walls. Maya could hardly believe it. This was her work, her vision, and it was on display for the world to see. She walked through the gallery, taking in the images she had captured over the past few months. Each one told a story, some of love, some of growth, and others of simple beauty. It was a collection that reflected not just her talent, but her journey. The journey of a woman who had struggled, who had faced doubts, but who had kept moving forward. As she stood there, taking it all in, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around to find Liam standing behind her, a proud smile on his face. "You did it, Maya," he said. "These are incredible." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't realized how much she needed this moment, the moment when everything she had worked for finally felt real. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't think I could have done it without your encouragement." Liam smiled, his eyes full of warmth. "You did all the hard work. I just reminded you how amazing you are." They stood together, admiring the photos, and for the first time in a long time, Maya felt completely at peace with herself. She wasn't just proud of the photos. She was proud of the woman she had become. She had found the balance she had been seeking between her personal life and her professional dreams. She had built a life that was full of meaning, not just for her son, but for herself. As the evening wore on, more people came to admire her work. Friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers stopped to take a closer look at the photos, offering compliments and words of praise. Maya found herself talking to many of them, sharing the stories behind the images, explaining how each photograph had captured a moment of her life, a moment of growth. As the event came to a close, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment that she had never experienced before. She had not only accomplished something incredible, but she had also learned that she was capable of so much more than she had ever believed. Her journey had been long and full of challenges, but it had led her here, to a place where she could proudly say that she had found her purpose. She had not only built a future for Noah, but she had also built a future for herself. When she got home that night, Noah was already asleep, but she stood by his bed for a moment, watching him peacefully sleep. She thought about how far they had come together. They had both changed, both grown. She had been determined to give him the best life possible, and now, she realized that she had given him something more, an example of strength, resilience, and the importance of chasing your dreams. She had never been just a mother. She had been a woman, a person with her own aspirations, and she had shown Noah that it was possible to reach for more, to create the life you want, even when it feels impossible. As she sat on the edge of his bed, Maya whispered softly, "We did it, Noah. We're going to be okay." She stood up, brushing a lock of hair away from his face, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had everything she needed. She had a job that challenged her, a passion that inspired her, and a son who loved her unconditionally. The future was no longer a source of fear. It was a place full of possibilities, full of hope. And as she walked to her own bed that night, her heart felt light. She had worked hard. She had fought for every step of this journey, and now, she was ready for whatever came next. Because she knew one thing for sure, she was not just surviving anymore. She was living. And that was the greatest gift she could give herself and Noah. In this inspiring story of resilience and growth, Maya's journey highlights the transformative power of perseverance and self-discovery. From struggling as a single mother to embracing new opportunities, Maya's experiences are a testament to the untapped potential within us all. As she navigates the challenges of balancing her career, motherhood, and personal dreams, Maya's story becomes one of empowerment and self-realization. Through hard work and a willingness to embrace change, Maya begins to build a future for herself and her son, learning that it's never too late to pursue your passions and create a fulfilling life. This journey mirrors many millionaire stories where people push through obstacles, reinvent themselves, and achieve success against the odds. Just like the stories of those who have gone from humble beginnings to extraordinary achievements, Maya's determination and belief in herself lead to a life she never thought possible. Her journey serves as a reminder that with hard work, a strong mindset, and a little help from those who believe in you, it's possible to turn dreams into reality. In the end, Maya's transformation is not just about financial success, but about finding balance, purpose, and happiness. Millionaire stories often highlight the importance of staying true to yourself, even when life seems overwhelming. The ability to rise above adversity and chase dreams is what makes these stories so powerful. Just like other millionaire stories, Maya's tale shows us that every small step forward can lead to something monumental. Maya's path is filled with moments of doubt, but with each challenge she overcomes, she inches closer to a brighter future, proving that it's possible to rewrite your own story, just as others have done in many millionaire stories.